Charlotte Soccer Show. John Hayes, Danny Brams. What's up, Danny? We're live here on a Wednesday evening in the Queen City. It's great to see you on this Charlotte Soccer Show live stream, of course, presented by our friends at Hotfly.
It's a beautiful day. Thanks, Hotfly, for presenting always. Can't wait for the latest Fresh Drop Friday coming up any time of the week. It's great to be here. It's on a Wednesday on a I don't know what I couldn't think of a quick W adjective for a alliterative Wednesday descriptor there, but it's a very big Wednesday. It's a huge news Wednesday. A lot of stories came out today, stories we were on top of that we confirmed. Finally, stories that we didn't know about. There were no leaks about another big story that happened. And then stories that came after Dino, the Mano, met the public and, finally sort of gave us his impressions of his first 2 weeks in charge of the club. And John, you got to talk to him today. You were in the room. Tell me about it.
Dean Smith, he spoke in Miami midway through what is Charlotte FC's preseason. There's a friendly on Friday, Danny. So it was fun to kind of have him on the microphone a few days before a match, if you will. He said he had never heard of the word scrimmage before throughout his entire career.
What was his term for that?
I guess it's a friendly or a practice game. I'm not sure, but the scrimmage was a brand new turn for Dino. So it was awesome to talk to him. But there was a lot of news to come out of this press conference, Danny, right? Because I think the first thing that had everyone in the room's interest was the fact that he spoke out on designated player Kamil Jozwiak, Danny, a player that has been discussed a lot of late, what his future will be, and leave it to Dean Smith, Danny, to just lay it out as frank as humanly possible.
Well, at the moment, Kamil hasn't joined us in Miami at the moment, so I had a chat with him before. I just felt that, we would look for a different profile of player where Kamil plays, and he understood that. So I believe him and his agent are looking for a club at the moment.
Okay, Danny, what we call that is when you report on a player and a manager not seeing him fit into the future of the club, right? This manager, he doesn't necessarily see him fit into the future here at Charlotte FC. So I had a conversation with him. I let him know he's well aware. It's a man-to-man conversation. Kamil Jozwiak was told clearly by Dean Smith that, sorry, son, you're not part of my plans here at Charlotte FC. And Dean Smith just came out and said it today as frank as you possibly could.
I kept thinking to myself today as I was thinking about, as this news came out, as you were sort of relayed to me, okay, he said this, this, and this right after the press conference. I was like, holy crap. He told Kamil to his face that you're not in the plans. That is that popped. That was the biggest news item for me for sure. And I just kept thinking to myself, how did that conversation go? Much like George McFly, I'm not that good at confrontations, I just cringe at the thought of having to deliver a tough conversation to tell somebody look, you're not it. Sorry. It's I can come to the realization. I know when someone needs to have that conversation had with them, but I'm not very good at delivering it. So props to Dino for being able to deliver it and just talk about it. That's yet another reason why I'm not a big time soccer coach, but I'm glad the conversation was had, because you and we'd been talking. I kind of put my sort of plan to my flag. I was very firm in saying, I know even though I didn't know for a fact, I knew for a fact that this club was moving on from Kamil Jozwiak. I was reading the tea leaves that our Englishmen in camp were putting out there. And I just thought to myself, there's no way Kamil starts the season with his team. And now we got the confirmation of it today. And I was glad that it was so straightforward. I want to thank all the TIFOs for jumping in. Obviously, we got a bunch of people jumping on this stream. We're here live. And Joe Garcia cuts right to the point, John. He liked Dino's answers to the presser, straightforward.
That's exactly right, and that's why I say they're just a frank answer. It's a really nice thing to hear a Charlotte FC manager just take a microphone and let people know about the decisions that he's making and what he wants moving forward, and that's key, right? Because he did not just say, "Hey, I told Kamil Jozwiak to talk to his agent and maybe find another club." Right. He also
he's like, I think they're looking for another club. It's just so great, whatever. We don't really care because he's not here. And
right.
And how about Brett Thompson checking in? We love Brett Live. Dino 100% sends food back at the restaurant, and I still love him. Yeah, that's probably a good take.
He also, what he did, Danny, he said he won certain pieces on this roster as well.
I'm looking at the moment, and I feel we lack a little bit of balance defensively. I think we've got 4 or 5 centre backs and all right-footed, so I wouldn't mind getting a left-footed centre back to give us a little bit more balance and obviously a bit more pace in the team are the areas that I would like to improve.
So that's another decision by the manager. He's circled 2 positions. He's circled a left-footed center back, Danny, and he's also circled a pacey player as well. And I'm just going to make the assumption that a pacey player, where he could potentially find a spot for a pacey player, might be on that right wing, might be on the wing somewhere where Kamil Jozwiak usually played for Christian Lattanzia.
Yeah, I mean, where do you want speed on the pitch? It's on the wings, right? And Geslin checking in says this is called leadership. I agree. I don't think these like demands that Dean desires that Dino put out there were a huge surprise. This is kind of what like you would have asked anybody in the fan base. What do you need? They would have said wingers and center backs. Like that's kind of like recognized as the positions of need right now for Charlotte. I love the specificity. I love that he said, I need a left-footed center back, like he knows the pieces that he's looking for. And I've given Dino credit for like being a guy who's not insisting on his system. And like, he's going to mold what he gets. He's going to like mold his system to the players, not his players to the system. But at the same time, if he's making requests, right? It's like, hey, Zord, if you're taking requests, Mr. DJ, I wouldn't mind you spinning to me a left-footed center back, please.
Exactly. No doubt about it. And Danny, other news today for Charlotte FC has been a big news day with Dino at the mic. And of course, an announcement first thing in the morning before that, a front office shakeup, if you will. No one's leaving the building, but there's folks coming in the building. And that is Tommy Wilson. Danny, we talked about this on the show, the new technical director for Charlotte FC, coming from the Philadelphia Union, where he built that academy into one of the best academies in MLS, maybe the best academy in MLS. He's been tasked with overseeing the entire program for Charlotte FC as well. And Miles Joseph, the associate head coach for Dean Smith. Interesting, I thought, in this answer from Dean Smith about these 2 appointments. Tommy Wilson, we'll call that a club signing. And Miles Joseph, that was a manager signing.
Tommy, that wasn't my hire or involvement. That's certainly a front office hire. But I'm really pleased that Tommy has joined us. I know of him and I know friends of his from when he was at Rangers. And everybody I've spoken to has spoken glowingly. And obviously his knowledge and what he's done at Philadelphia, he's very impressive as well. So we're really pleased to have got him on board. But I was heavily involved in bringing Miles into the club. We interviewed a ton of coaches, a ton of coaches that can come and assist me and help me with MLS experience, because that's the thing that I feel that I lack. And Miles was the one we chose out of a very very high caliber of talent that's out there in terms of coaches, and his knowledge of the game, of the players in this league, coaches in this league, and how teams will play will be invaluable for me. So really pleased to have him on board.
How excited, Danny, are you about these appointments?
I'm very excited. It's like, what do they say in the movie business when an actor gets very big? They say, one for me, one for them. I do a passion project that I like, and then I do what the studio tells me to for the next project. So Dino kind of gave me a one for me, one for them take on that, which I enjoy. Tommy Wilson, pour one out. I don't want to pour this coffee on my microphone here, but pour one out. Pour a little bit out for Level Up Luke, tremendous friend of the show. Who is a big Celtic fan, and this is Rangers blood just being infused into Charlotte FC now with Arfield's Rangers ties and now Tommy Wilson's Rangers ties. So sorry about that, Luke. You're just going to have to switch from green to blue. I think you want to switch from green to blue anyway. I'm like now a Rangers fan because of Scott Arfield. By
the way, if you haven't heard the Scott Arfield interview on the Charlotte Soccer Show, make sure you go and listen to that. He's a great Scotsman, and it's nice to know that Tommy Wilson, another Scot, is coming into this club, and those two definitely will get on. There's no doubt about that. And then the UK influence over this club, Danny, just continues to grow, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. And like Westwood, I think, is going to be even more influential in the team this year. I said from like almost from the end of last year, I was like, Ashley Westwood is coming for next year. Like, he's not effing around. He's coming to like get at some people, and he's coming to like make a much bigger impact in his second year in MLS than his first year, I hope, which was decent impact last year. But then the other thing I like, even though we are getting that British invasion a little bit still, we also are bringing in Miles Joseph. I love that Dean recognized what he lacked. Like, how great is it that Dean Smith comes in here is not so blind as to say, well, I don't need MLS experience. I've got Premier League experience. What do I need an MLSer in my side for? But he actually knows. Like, it's a great man who knows his own weaknesses, and like, you know, physician know thyself, and also the unexamined life is not worth living. If I can throw one more little great quotation out there for you. And Dean Smith has examined his life, and he knows he needs some MLS help. Once Gesslin checks in with Gesslin is reposting the same comment that he posted 10 minutes ago. This is leadership. We got to love that. But Dino said, I'm going to go get an MLS lifer. Miles Joseph is an MLS lifer. This guy was drafted out of college into MLS in 1996 and has worked for this organization in one capacity or another for almost 30 years now. So he's been an assistant coach on a lot of great teams. He was an interim head coach for Portland Timbers at the end of last year. He sort of saw out their campaign after they fired Gio Savarese. So gotta love Joseph coming in. Gotta love Dean realizing he needs a guy like Joseph. I don't know Miles Joseph, and it's not like Dean like knew Miles Joseph either. But he said, we interviewed a bunch of people, and I liked Miles the best, and I said, I got to have this guy. So that's pretty cool to me. And yeah, I don't know. We're getting a lot of our comments that are coming in here now are about the first topic we had, Kamil, and we'll get back to Kamil and some of the team stuff later. But I think these hires, I do want to point out what Ash Hamrick is asking. And Johnny, what do you think? Will the front office additions have effect on this transfer window? That's kind of the crux of like, today's like such a good day for Charlotte FC with all this news and positivity. But like, we can't forget that like every single day for the last week or so has been like clamoring for transfers and new players and stuff like that. So, and it will probably go back to that tomorrow.
It will, and it's a great question by Ash, and it's great to have Ash checking in on the show. And Danny, the answer is no. These new hires at this moment will not. Tommy Wilson is the technical director for the club. I believe his start date is February 12th, and he'll be focused on, again, what the technical director for this club is going to do is just going to have complete oversight on some of the technical aspects about how this soccer club runs. What type of soccer does Charlotte FC play? Not just in the first team, but in the youth academy as well. At Crown Legacy, there's a connection. There's a tissue between all the different clubs that are within the club, so that when players are elevated or promoted and move on and grow into their new roles at the club, they're still playing that same style of soccer. And that's what Tommy Wilson will do for the next many, many years. He's 62 years old. I think he's got a chance to be here for the tail end of his career and be here for hopefully a long tenure. He was with Philadelphia Union for, I think it was 10 years, almost 11 years, more than a decade.
He's 62, so he puts in a decade here at Charlotte FC and then runs for president of the United States, right? But how about Ash Hamrick checking in from Germany to ask that question, staying up till 3 a.m. We got to love that.
Wow.
I think Tommy's cheers to you. I think Tommy's whole big thing is like setting up the academy and like working with Dean and saying, what is the style? And then he knows how to like take a style that a coach has given him and impart it down the line. It's almost like a producer-director relationship on a film set or something like that. So I think it's going to be really cool.
And the final clip I wanted to share from the press conference today, of course, I couldn't go. A preseason press conference and talking to Dean Smith about the one and only Patrick Agyemang. I think one of the more interesting, unique young American striker prospects in the country right now. Has flown under the radar his entire career, but every time Patrick Agyemang sees the field on any level he's ever played at, he's done one thing. He's scored goals, Danny.
Jose Tavares, I think, gave one of the most famous quotes about Patrick Agyemang when he said, "I can give him wings and make him fly." You've spent now more than a week with Patrick Agyemang. What can you say about his training camp so far?
I can give him wings and I can make him fly also.
Yeah, he looks good at the striker position.
Yeah, no, he's good. He's a willing learner. We've just done a finishing session actually. Him, Luri, and Enzo. Carroll's feeling his hip a little bit, so he won't train for the next couple of days, but then he'll be back. So yeah, working with him. Jose's here with us as well. So we've been talking about our methodology and how we get it across to the players as well, at both first team level and legacy level as well. So it's been really good to share ideas, with Jose as much as the other coaches as well.
You love to hear him say those same words, Danny. I mean, from Jose's mouth now to
what I got there is he almost was like afraid to say too much in praising Patrick. Like he quickly turned the subject over to like all the strikers and sort of got into the broader aspect of that answer. But he made sure to deliver you a very good one-liner in response to your question in saying that, and he tipped his hand. Like if he's trying to hide Patrick, he tipped his hand too much in terms of we know that he likes what he sees in Ajimon.
Yeah, how could you not? I mean, he's a player that, and I also asked Dean Smith about young American players and coaching American players who he necessarily didn't have a huge relationship with abroad during his time in the UK. I mentioned Josh Sargent as a player at Norwich City that Dean Smith has had experience with, but as far as a lot of Americans, and then one other thing I want to point out for the press conference today, Danny, was in the beginning of the press conference, one of the first players that Dean Smith singled out, and you honestly cannot make this up. Remember, because the last time, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time Dean Smith had a press conference when we were there at Atrium Health Performance Park, and he had not met or spoken with any of the players except for Ashley Westwood, the captain.
Yep.
And he meets all the players. He goes to training camp and unprompted mentions the first player, and that is Brant Bronico. I mean, you really can't make that up. That one of the first things that Dean Smith does is comes out to his press conference and talk about Brant Bronico in a way that is so positive, that he's got an engine, that he can run forever and he can run tomorrow too. And it just really made me feel good about everything that we've talked about on the show, because that's the one thing we've highlighted about Brant Bronico in this squad, about why we love him so much. He's going the full 90. It's all about the grind set. This kid showed up to Charlotte FC preseason and just blew Dean Smith away with his fitness level.
Well, what did we say? Like the day Dean Smith was hired, Brant was probably like, back to the lab, let's get in there and start grinding harder than ever, So and what a Dean's comment, I think, was, oh, that boy Bronico, he can run all day, can't he? I think that's what he said at the presser today. So very cool. Keegan is asking, what's up, Real Keegan? Did you cover the These Aren't My DP take? That's coming up momentarily for sure. Brett, checks in again. What do you think of this analogy? Brett's an analogy guy. I work with Brett, so I know he's very big into analogies and wordplay, but does the presser make you feel like someone who wants to get married before they've even gone on a first date, just in terms of confidence and composure? I love it. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how Karol Swiderski can come out of a team meeting and say he wants to go transfer over to Europe and play for somebody else. I mean, come on, Karol.
Right.
If you want to up your value, if you want to become a better player, I think the writing's on the wall right now. With Kamil Jozwiak opening up that DP spot, I think Dean Smith, hopefully his message to somebody that is Karol Swiderski is, hey, we're going to get you somebody with pace on the wing here, and you're going to play up in the striker position. You can play at the 10 as well, and we're going to feature you in a way. So, yeah, I mean, who's not ready to pop the question right now, Brett?
I mean, I'm ready. You've said it. I tend to be confident, super confident, at the start of any season. So I was famously overconfident with our chances last year, and I thought we were going to storm the league, and we didn't. And you know what? It doesn't matter. I think I'm already back in that same mindset of thinking we're going to storm the league. I mean, look at this. It's great. We've got the footage up here now. If you're just listening, of Dean coaching, just a nice training clip that the club provided us with, which is really cool. And just watch this coach work. It's really great. As Bridget chimes in, such a much better atmosphere already. I mean, that's clearly apparent from what you're seeing here. And I love Dean. And one of the things he said today, which, John, I want your take on, is he was asked about, I think it was Bridget, right, who asked him about the DPs. Okay, so one DP's out. but we got two other DPs, Carroll and Enzo. Do you see them playing together? They didn't play together up top as much last year. Is that something you want to do? And what was his answer? He was like, yeah, I mean, they're doing pretty good. They're not the DPs that I chose for my team, so they better impress me. But they're all right, you know.
I mean, Danny, look at this picture right here. That's the gaffer right there. The foot on top of the ball
yeah,
there.
Exactly. Short, not short shorts, but shorter than most Americans wear for sure.
No, but I mean, honestly, Danny, like from that point of view, from the gaffer's point of view, when he's talking about the DPs, that's absolutely the right thing to say. And the reason why you've got to challenge these players is because it's MLS, right? These players from top to bottom on the squad are very more close to equal than they are separate. And just because Enzo Capetti is being paid a sum of money that's greater than most other players, and it is in this special category, doesn't mean he's guaranteed to see the field. Now, we can have a whole separate discussion about the business and the economics of football, and why Enzo Capetti actually playing would be a very good thing for the club. But Dean Smith doesn't make a decision at that level. He plays whoever the best striker is on that Saturday night. So I think that's really special. And as far as Karol Swiderski is concerned, I think I hinted at it, Danny. I mean, what ended up happening with Kamil Jozwiak, it could mean one or two things, Danny. It could mean that Karol Swiderski's next up, that Karol Swiderski is going to follow Kamil out the door, or he's going to take Dean Smith's challenge and try to prove to us once again he's our DP, and he's expensive enough to move to Europe for $10+ million in the summertime.
Yeah, and it's really like, hey, Carol, do you want to go to a mid-table Italian league club in January, or do you want to go to a mid-table Premier League club in the summer after having a great opening season in MLS and like really getting on radar and like really get into a power supercharged attack, you know, like under Dino and stuff like that, which great comment by Joe Garcia. No skinny jeans for Dino. Yeah. Skinny jeans went the way of the old regime for sure. I just think, like, look at that image. Can I bring up this image again of him working with Nimfasha? Like, one of the things is like his work with young players is one of the things that's been lauded so strongly in his time here. And I just think that's really cool. Carol has to sort of feel like a little bit more fire under his tail, I think, with the way that like some of these young guys are now coming up. He's now, for lack of a better word, an elder statesman at this club. You know, it's a young club, but he's the guy who's been here now. And like he has to sort of have Carroll feels different this year than he has the previous 2 years, because he's the elder statesman. He's the one, he's been here the longest almost more than anybody, really, right? And there's a new coach coming in, and there's all these young guys who weren't around the last 2 years, and they're like here, like coming up through the ranks. And it's like all of a sudden he feels he's got to work a little bit harder. You know, Dino even said it. These guys got to work a little bit harder. Like for Enzo and Carol, like what you said, Johnny, they're making the money, but like if Dean Smith thinks Ajamong's better, he's going to put Ajamong in there. I think that's pretty clear. There's another thing Dean Smith, he said, didn't he even say like, oh, you guys are going to be shocked when you see my first 11. You know, he's like, oh, when I put my first 11 out there, you guys are just going to be like, whoa. And I was like, yes, Dino, put it in the veins, right? Like, let's go.
Yeah. So everything so far, Danny's on the show it's been good news. It's been roses. I feel like we're celebrating something, but we have a dose of reality. And it was reported earlier, and Joe Garcia dropped it in the chat as well, is that Brandon Cambridge is down with an ankle injury. Danny posted on X today that he went in for ankle surgery and will miss the beginning of the season. Don't know how long Brandon Cambridge will be missing, but when we talk about losing a DP winger and now losing a young right winger alongside him, all of a sudden that position for Dean Smith, Danny, has become very, very thin. Who's next in line at that right wing position?
Mackenzie Gaines, right? We got McKenzie. Oh wait, no. There's Brandon. By the way, I want to pop this up and just show you, Brandon. There's always a great sort of genre, social media genre of like footballers posting thumbs up pictures from injury recovery beds and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. I mean, Vargas will be on the wing, right? Vargas is kind of our winger guy. Dean talked about speed, but did he really talk about wingers per se? He never said the word winger. So I was kind of thinking, what if we played like a 4-2-2-2 and let our fullbacks really just handle the wings, Burn and Lindsay or Burn and Urinen, and really just like try to run like Carroll and Enzo up top, and like Arfield and Vargas and Deagra behind them a little bit wider, and then like Westwood and Bronico if Dean loves Bronny now too, just like all the other coaches did, or Westwood and Arfield like that. So that's possible, but as far as depth at winger, we don't really have a lot, especially I was expecting Cambridge to get minutes. Could the Cambridge injury mean they reopen a conversation with Miram? I doubt it, but it's possible. I mean, Miram, when they first cut Miram, they said, we'll think about it again, re-signing him, and then recently that hasn't happened. So I don't know. Who would you like to see in that role if it's not VAR? If we are playing the 4-2-3-1 or whatever, who would you like to see in that spot where Kamil used to be?
Well, I think Karol Swiderski, I've hinted this at previous episodes that I really like Karol kind of hanging out on that right wing, cutting into his left foot and getting off a shot. It's kind of like the Kulusevski role with Spurs, where you've got that left-footed forward player on the right wing that can cut inside and really dangerously make something happen. If you remember, Jalen Lindsay, one of his best goals of the season, Karol Swiderski was lingering down that right-hand side. Remember, he kept that ball in play, knocked it across the face of goal, and Lindsay knocked it in. I believe that might have been on Danny Brams' 12 goals of Christmas countdown. I'm pretty sure it was.
It was on Bramsey Claus's 12 goals for sure. That was my favorite assist of the year. Our first goal of the year was a Carroll from the right wing assist to Copetti header against St. Louis, right? And,
yes,
that was probably the high point of our season, really, until the last game played messy. So, although the Atlanta win, obviously, what most people would say. I wanted to throw a name at you maybe and see what you think. Courtney House. Dino mentioned the left-footed center back, right? So this is a guy who this is not original research. Somebody had brought this up though in our comments to take a look at this guy. So I did. Left-footed center back, 28 years old, plays for Aston Villa, great Premier League experience, some connections to Dean. I think maybe even he might have played at Brentford even, but I have to double check that. No, it wasn't at Brentford, but he was at Villa long enough to know Dean there. And like, he's kind of like in limbo at Aston Villa right now. He's like never going to play for them again. So like, hey, maybe we go get a left-footed center back out of the Premier League. That could be kind of cool. I don't know, but that's just one name. But like, I do like
another name. I think Ben Gibson, I think, was another name. Danny Brams, Norwich City player who also is a left-footed center back, and I saw Tifos mention his name as well, just to throw another name in the ring. Or it's just one of those things, Danny. For me, the nice thing is a left-footed center back. You know exactly what you're looking for, right? There's a pool of players, and you potentially go get one.
Yeah, I mean, like Michael says, Dean said left-footed defender, so I expect one now. So Dean is a so let it be written, so let it be done type of guy, right? Like when Dean speaks, we just kind of expect it to happen. Is that honeymoon stage, or is that real something that we can expect to last for a while here with this new sort of pedigree in the house? Joe LeBou always talks about we're doing it big and we're not messing around anymore, and we're like they reassigned their entire sporting side staff here. Like one we haven't mentioned yet, but Zoran has a new title. Chief soccer officer. That's pretty cool, I think. And then
general manager, chief soccer officer. To me, it's kind of just a reshuffle, if you will. I think it's the same job, just a different title for sure. Sporting director, chief soccer officer, and general manager.
I think it's just to avoid confusion, avoid confusion with sporting director, technical director, who knows, or some type of corporate nonsense. But regardless, it's an entire rethinking. Like the changes to the front office that were announced today were planned and plotted back at the same time that they plotted to fire Latanzio. Like they took an overall year-end evaluation of the club and decided this is what we need moving forward, right? So I just think what I'm so excited about with this club right now, and today like really encapsulated it, is the blank slate. Is like everybody come in. The idea that like no one's job is safe. That's great. The idea that Brant Bronico has to go fight for his job again and is doing it. The idea that Carroll and Enzo have to go fight for their job again, and they're doing okay, but he seemed pretty happy when you brought up Ajimong. So, Ben Bender at right wing, Gesslin throws out. Thanks for following the team, Ben. Matt, excuse me, because as metric of success, our Tifos says Ben's injured for the first 5 weeks. He can't be right wing. Sorry. But good enough idea there, Matt. I don't know. I also think João Pedro. One thing I will say, João Pedro's the left-footed center back. I don't think anyone has brought that up today, but like it's tough to slot a kid straight in like that. One of the things I didn't like about our back line was the inexperience the last couple of years. So I don't necessarily want another rookie in there, but I have to think he's the understudy to whoever we do bring in.
I think the position, Danny, it's one of those things. It's like that's what Dean Smith clearly wants. I think there's players on the roster that can do it. I think there's like 4 or 5 guys that could do it, but ultimately the Cambridge injury is a blow considering the news with Kamil today. There's no doubt about that. And, I appreciate one thing, Danny, I appreciate all the Tifos. I wanted to ask the Tifos. I hope they like the part of the show. We definitely want to ramp up on these live streams, Danny, definitely want to ramp up the production, bring you some videos, right. And really kind of make it more of a visual experience. So anybody who's listening to this on the podcast, make sure you to subscribe to our YouTube page as well. We'll probably do one of these during the season each week. I think the reason why I wanted to fire this up this evening and do the show virtually is because we're going to have a lot more of these coming during the season. I think right now we've got them slated and penciled in for Sundays. Post Saturday matches on Sunday, Danny and I will probably do a virtual show. We're hoping to bring you that from Hopfly, which will be a really cool experience. This season for the first time, hanging out on Hopfly on Sundays. Come by after a win, come by after a loss. We'll have the show live at Hopfly, and we'll be streaming live here on our YouTube page, on Instagram, on X as well. So this is our plan for the season. So we wanted to fire it up tonight, keep it rolling, keep it moving. And I want to give a special thanks to Sean Swain for taking care of our graphics as well. Our Charlotte Soccer Show graphics, all of our branding. Shout out to Sean. Thanks so much for helping us out with that throughout the off season. So Dan, I just want to drop that into the show here as we're about a half an hour in. And one thing I also wanted to do tonight was answer the Tifos questions. I knew I put out the back signal. I knew I asked the Tifos, Danny, and I found the prompt, and we've got a lot of our favorite Tifos or commenters in these replies. And it's one of those things because not everybody can join live, right? So we've got Tifos who here in the chat who want to ask questions. Sure. We've got some legends here, Danny, and I've got questions I need you to answer.
Well, where would we be without the Tifos? Always, we appreciate you. Like people that have been riding. We've been sitting here 33 minutes now, just like BSing about our love for this club and everything that's going on, and we got 20, 30, 40 people riding with us. That nothing feels better than that. So, love to answer the questions. Are we doing rapid fire here, or like what's my modus operandi?
Yes, I'm asking you the questions. I want your answer, and maybe I'll chime in as well, but you typically are in a good spot to answer these rapid fire. So let's start with JPP. Looking ahead.
Wait, real quick. I'm so sorry.
I thought this was rapid fire.
I do this. I forgot one thing I just had to say. The most obvious answer that I forgot to bring up to the right wing question. The new DP that we replaced Kamil with. Sorry, I forgot.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. I guess that signing is happening here at some point, and hopefully we'll talk to Zora and Granetta about
rapid fire. Show. Whoever that turns out to be, it's probably not going to be growing back.
Okay, James Paul Perez. No, definitely not Albert Kronback. He's getting paid either not now or by somebody else in the summertime. James Paul Perez. He chimes and he says, "Danny, looking ahead to February 24th, I can't stop thinking about how crucial that game is. I'm so glad to start with this question because it really gets us into that match week mode. With 3 in a row on the road after that, we really need 3 points on opening night against NYCFC. Do you agree with that?"
Oh, 100%. And the good news is we always get 3 points against NYCFC. So I'm really not that worried about it. I think it's the perfect opening opponent for us at home against NYCFC. What could be better, right? A team that we always beat, a team that is not had they had one. I think they brought in one good young player that they expect to be one of their new stars, but they have more outgoings. One of their best players is a guy named Tyus Magno, who's just like a super prospect who they've never been able to make it work there, and they're talking about selling him on now without him ever having really accomplished anything there. So I love the fact that we can play NYCFC to start the match. I would hate to lose our perfect streak against them, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Dino's going to have this team ready to fly out the gate. I agree that the 3 road matches right after that, with 2 of them being in Canada and one of them being literally the farthest trip that we can take, Vancouver. I don't love that, but I think that the Nashville game is going to be fun because there's going to be a huge Tifos representation and Charlotte FC fan representation. I'm 100% locked to go to Nashville. I'm going to be there for the week working anyway, so I'll just stick around an extra day and go to the game. And I know Greg Franco and a bunch of other people are planning to come up. There's Airbnb rentals being discussed, so keep these conversations going in the channel. But we'll have a huge contingent going to Nashville on St. Patty's weekend. So that's going to be good. So I like that. And then we come home. So, but yeah, it's to answer James Quall's question rapidly. Yes.
Yeah, what you failed to do, by the way. It was one thing to add to that, Danny, is that, fine, you got to get 3 points because you go on the road the next 3 matches, and then you come home, but then you're playing Columbus at home, who is the reigning MLS Cup champion,
and then Cincinnati right after,
and then you're playing Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I've seen it. I've looked.
Yeah. So it's pretty tough schedule. DB's hot takes. Chiming in, Danny Brackets asked us a question about Kamil. Do you think his replacement is being sealed as soon as that plane ticket is bought for Kamil, or do you think the club assesses its options and goes from there?
Well, this is where I have to quote my boy Lil Wayne and say, "Real G's move in silence like lasagna." There's all this talk and all this clamor of where's the news? Where's the news? We don't have any. We're not linked to anyone. We're not linked to anyone. Blah, blah, blah. We're not signing anyone. And all I want to say is, I would call this professionalism from the Charlotte FC staff. The Tommy Wilson thing would not have leaked if it wasn't for one dogged young reporter on the Philly side who had some sources that confirmed it. Charlotte FC didn't want anyone to know about the Tommy Wilson hire until today, when they were ready to announce it. They kept them out, but so they did successfully keep Miles Joseph under wraps. That's a pretty high-profile hire from someone who knows everybody in MLS, and that news never leaked. So that's pretty interesting. And then the Groenbeck news never really leaked until we made an official offer. There was no sort of inching up to the line. It was just out of nowhere, boom, offer made. So I really think Charlotte FC is sort of showing a higher level of professionalism. They're not whispering out there to people, hey, go ahead and tweet that eyeballs emoji because some news is coming tomorrow. That there's none of that going on. So I think they've been working their asses off. There's no chance that Zoran and Thomas and Benno and the whole team and Tommy and Bobby and even Dean now. There's no chance they've been wasting the last 2 weeks sitting there doing nothing, staring at a poster of Albert Groenbeck and hoping he comes. No, they've got plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan Z, the whole fucking thing. So the only thing I wish is that, as Vi says, Dean has a few good guys in mind. I wish that we weren't so locked into, I feel like, as you've said many times, John, it's that European pipeline is always the default, and we're never really scouting South America outside of just the Enzo pipe dream from Latanzio last year.
Speaking of Enzo Capetti, I wanted to get to this question, and it was in the chat, one of my favorites so far on the episode. Do you think Dino has already told Enzo to cut the shit and no more rolling on the pitch in anguish every time he's nudged off the ball?
I hope so, and I hope Ashley Westwood was standing right over Dino's right shoulder when he told him, for sure. We know, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, Dino can have the tough conversation. So I think the answer is yes.
Well, and you know what? He might not even have to do it because MLS just handled it themselves over the offseason. If you didn't see, there was a rule change. If a player stays down on the pitch for an extended period of time, he needs to then come off the pitch and stay off the pitch for, I think it's a minute or so.
Yeah, I
maybe
think it's
30
2 or 3
seconds,
minutes.
but
Yeah.
it's not 2 or 3 minutes. There's
Oh,
no
it's
way
just a
it's
minute?
2 or
Okay.
3 minutes.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
I'm
if it was
I'm thinking of something else. Forgive me.
if there was 2 or 3 minutes, yeah, the purist, me being one of them, would be up in arms, and that's ridiculous. The whole
That is a lot.
field for
Yeah.
2 or 3
But
minutes.
yeah, just some type of consequence is good. And yeah,
Yeah.
Enzo needs to, like, it's just a waste of energy. It's just wasted energy. That's my whole thing. It's just wasted energy. Quit wasting
Russell
energy.
Russell in North Carolina chimes in with Joseph and Wilson now secured. What new clues do we have about the team's tactics on the pitch? And I think this is a good idea for you. You talked about that 4-2-2-2 earlier. What type of tactics? That's you're in on that from a tactical point of view.
I'm in on that. I've seen it work. I like that because it just kind of like is like a conveyor belt that just sort of like moves the ball back to front, and just like everybody always has 2 dudes to pass to, and I've seen it work for some good Watford teams back in the day, and even maybe even saw Villa play that one time. I'm not sure, but I don't know. It's a 4-2-2-2 is kind of almost like a formless. It's almost gets to like positionless soccer for your front guys, because you just sort of allow them all to roam. Who knows if we're talented enough to really pull that off? But I just really want to see Camille and Enzo up top, or excuse me, Carol and Enzo up top together. That, like, whatever it takes to facilitate that is really the tactics I want.
Dave Lively, he asks, Danny, where are the player moves? I mean, let's just address that now, right? We think that the DP's coming. Do you think any other signings are coming now that Cambridge is injured?
Yeah.
Vinny Mello could potentially be on the way out as well. The 2 Crown Legacy players have been promoted to the first team, signed to the first team.
Mm-hmm.
Who's next? I'm not sure there's going to be somebody else. I think if you ask me over under 1 right now, I think I would probably say like a push right on the number 1.
Yeah, I would say 1. I think over 0.5. I think just kind of like Shinyashiki, Tuiloma, Miram, like some of those intra-league signings kind of all came out of nowhere. There's just little deals you can pick up. Every team has somebody lingering on their bench that they don't want anymore. So we can probably go pick up one of those guys as a quick needs-based type thing.
Cool.
And I think one more role player with the Cambridge injury. I think that's appropriate, but I think I would say that would come after the DP.
That's my second to last question. That's penultimate question on this Tifos round of question. I got one more from Lenny Kornacki, Danny, for you here, and that's okay. No big signings yet. What's your thermometer reading? Right, what's your temperature right now? Are you feeling feverish? You're a little worried that this team is not going to get the job done. Are you feeling 98.6? Do you feel healthy? Or do you have a low temperature here? You need to kind of get a little shot. You need to wake you up a little bit and get that blood pumping and get that temperature risen a little bit. Where are you?
I hate to quote Atlanta legends here in Charlotte, but we'll just give them credit for being from the entire South. I'm cooler than a polar bear's toenails. Oh, hell. As Outkast once sang. I'm 98.5. I'm right. I'm just a little bit cooler than everybody else right now. And I think it's all good. I want the signing to come just as anybody. If we don't have any signings till opening match kickoff, I will be mildly disappointed. But I'm pretty sure the signing's coming, so I'm really not too worried about it. I know there's people that are listening to this right now that will say, if we don't have any signings by game 1, I'm going to be freaking apoplectic, up in arms. And I get that. But just remember, we have until April to bring guys in. Obviously, it's much, much harder after the European window closes. I get it. But let's see what happens this week. This weekend next.
I think yeah, exactly. There's time. There's plenty of time. And remember, just because a European window closes doesn't necessarily mean the window is totally closed. There's an MLS transfer window that's open throughout the springtime. Now, who you can sign in that window, that's anybody's guess, but there's players out there. You can find some diamonds in the rough.
What do you think about Bobby Firmino coming in? That's who Brett Thompson wants. He thinks Roberto Firmino is the key to unlock the whole damn thing.
But is he bringing speed to the table? Because if he's not bringing speed to the table at this point in his career, I'm not sure if Dino's going to have him on board. Somebody's got to be able to run up and down, whoever he signs. Unless That kind of signing, seriously though, I think you're looking at it at some point in the next, if this project goes well with Dean Smith, and I'm being serious about this. If this project goes well, if Dean Smith can make a name for himself in America at Charlotte FC by having success and building Karol Swiderski into one of the best players in the league, and bringing Patrick Ajmang along to be sold for $30 million across to the UK. And if that happens, and while yes, those are exaggerated numbers, and I say that 30 mil tongue in cheek, but if Dean Smith can do that, then all of a sudden you have to start circling players abroad who are towards the end of their career, who still have some time left in it. Maybe a player like an Antoine Griezmann, a player that has always been rumored to come to MLS, you know, somebody that you've mentioned on the show before. So when you're thinking about Dean Smith and kind of what he can do for this club right now, I think you have to think about it in a way that is, hey, yes, what happens in those first 3 or 4 or 5 matches really matter, but ultimately whether this tenure as a whole is successful will impact Charlotte FC's transfer strategy down the line in different windows. Right now, Dean Smith at Charlotte FC, I think it's a really nice hire. The Tifos love it. Our tremendous friends of the show, I love it. Danny, you love it as well. Nobody has said a bad thing about this hire because it's impossible to do that. Now, do some people have doubts? Yeah, I think some people do have doubts. And Dean Smith is going to have to prove those people wrong here in the next few months, in the next 6 months, the next 12 months, because once you get this project into to 2025, once you get this project into 2026 and you've already had success, maybe you've won a trophy or maybe you've made an appearance in a final by that point, then you're talking about an organization that could really be humming. So while you're thinking about the micro and all these questions, a lot of them are focused on the here and the now. And I don't blame it. Blame anybody for those questions. But Danny,
who could blame them?
This should be a long-term project.
Dino always, you know, there's people that are cheering for Aston Villa right now today that still say we wouldn't be where we are if Dean Smith hadn't laid the foundation. So who knows what we'll look like 5-6 years. I'm excited about this year. Johnny, you couldn't have said it better yourself. I think I just heard you say we're going to win MLS Cup this year. Somewhere in there. I extracted that. I don't know. Yeah. As long as we get these players.
I'm looking at the moment, and I feel we lack a little bit of balance defensively. I think we've got 4 or 5 centre backs and all right-footed, so I wouldn't mind getting a left-footed centre back to give us a little bit more balance and obviously a bit more pace in the team are the areas that I would like to improve.
He wants to improve. He wants to improve, Danny, and he wants to see the players in. And if he gets those players, who knows what could happen? We've seen crazier things happen in MLS. We know, and I think I'll address this at the end of the show, Danny, as we wrap things up here. It's that we've been so hyper focused on Charlotte FC, right? We have been so hyper focused on Charlotte FC. We haven't talked about one of Charlotte FC's biggest rivals, Atlanta United, getting really a lot better during this offseason, and a lot of people are talking about Atlanta United reaching a form on paper that they were when they won MLS Cup. And then you've got Inter Miami as well, and you got the dream team in Miami, Messi and his soldiers, I guess, if you will, Busquets and Suarez and Alba, you know, who else?
What's that movie that had like Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman as like all these old guys that like went to like knock over a bank or something for like their one last caper? That's Inter Miami for sure. They're still a brand, not a club.
It's Charlotte Soccer Show. I'm John Hayes. He's Daniel Bramlett. Thanks so much, everybody, hanging out with us on this Wednesday evening. It's been a fun show. Always good to get the Tifos involved. And we'll try to do this whenever Dean Smith has a press conference to a virtual show. You make sure you go to our YouTube page, subscribe, set notifications. You'll know when we go live as well. Follow us on Instagram at Charlotte Soccer City. Follow us on X at For the Crown Baby. And then, of course, our Substack. You can find all of that, all those links in our show description here. But remember, Dan, you got to circle March 2nd. That's the big day on the calendar. The first away day bash at Hopfly. Like that's what we're looking forward to, right? We're gonna, and the best part is we get a dry run on an actual match day. We get to go there on the 24th before NYCFC, and we get to pregame at Hopfly, but then we get to prepare for the away day bash at Hopfly on March 2nd
Mhm.
against Vancouver, 7:30 Eastern kick. Party probably starts around 4 o'clock. It's going to be a great afternoon.
We have some pretty big plans. We're talking, we might have some live music. We're talking like a live broadcast. We'll do an episode of the show from there with like a PA and like take Tifo's questions live from the crowd and stuff like that. We'll do walk-in talks with people walking to the game and some live streaming and stuff like that. So first home game at Hopfly, make sure you go. Whatever your usual pregame plans have been the last couple of years, take the first game. I know it's the first game. You want to go back to what you've always done, but think about swinging over to Hopfly if you never have before, because we're going to have a lot of fun. Could become your new routine, maybe. Who knows? I don't know, but yeah, I'm so excited to be back, man. I mean, I think we're like 30 days till kick, right? Today's the 24th, so fired up.
It's a good time to be fired up. It's a good time to be a soccer fan in the QC. And one more thing before we go, and we're going to talk about this later, but the Charlotte Independents rescheduled 5 of their matches this season, 4 of them to Friday nights, 1 of them to a Thursday night. So get ready for some Friday night football in town.
Right.
This season. So we're going to have some plans for Friday night football in the QC as well, with the Charlotte Independents, and a Thursday night football game as well at American Legion Memorial Stadium. So that's really exciting, something to think about. Good night, Bridget. Good night, everybody who's watching the show. Thanks so much for watching Charlotte Soccer Show. Danny, as always,
For the crown, baby.